In this video, we will see how to achieve this cool sliver animation with help of Panels app example. I've also added link for the part 1, so make sure to check it out so that you don't miss the beat. My name is Afzal, and in this video series, we are replicating MKBHD's Panels app. Today, we are working on Explore page, which looks quite simple, but in reality, it took me longer than expected. And here's the tutorial for you guys covering all the details.
In the last video, we have seen how to create this grid view inside home page. So I'm going to use the same component in today's video also with Explore. But before we proceed, I would like to fix something which I haven't tested on Android at that time. And later on, I realized that on Android, it is showing some elevation in the bottom navigation bar. So we can simply fix that shadow issue by providing elevation of 0 pixel. And also the height of 100 looks too much. So 80 should be fine, I think, on Android and iOS both. So that's it for like homepage. Let's move on to the Explore page, which is the topic of this video. So first thing first, let's go ahead and change the body to nested scroll view, which we have used in the last video as well, if you remember. And mainly it has two parts, the header sliver builder and the body. Inside header sliver, we are going to put the image slider and the search bar, and inside body, of course, we will have a grid view with all the images. So currently it's complaining about some of the errors in the widget, and we have not provided something. Not a problem, we'll just give a body container as of now, and also remove the constant keyword from scaffold, because now this nested scroll view, of course, it's not a constant widget. Cool. Now the error is gone. Inside header sliver builder, we can provide multiple slivers. So that's why it returns an array of slivers. And mainly we are going to use two sliver app bar here, one for image slider and another one for search button. Now we have to customize these things later on, but for now, for time being, let's define the structure. So if we give it a run, it looks something like this, which is empty because we have nothing inside sliver app bar, we have nothing inside body. So let's go ahead to home page and copy the grid view, which we used inside a tab. We'll just copy the grid view, nothing else, and replace the body of our Explore page. As simple as that. Let's fix the references. So Masonry grid view comes from this package, image style comes from this widget file, and here we have half of the page done. But actually remaining half is more complex. This is just, simplest 8-10 lines of code, and for the remaining part we will be writing hundreds of lines of code. But nevertheless, that's gonna be fun for sure. Okay, what I did here, I just added img keyword here. You can even write your name if you want, because that just adds randomness to the image so that you get fresh images and sometimes nice images as well. All right, that's for the body part. Now let's move to the actual part, which is a bit tricky as well. If you look at the application reference, you have image slider on top. Now the first thing we have to decide is how much height we need for that slider. So here I'm keeping a 320 pixel, and that you can specify in the expanded height, and collapsed height, automatically it will take the toolbar height, so you can leave that property. Okay, now inside sliver app bar, there are many properties like title, flexible space, bottom, and there's so many items you can use, leading and all. But here I'll be using flexible space because that only works. I have tried with title, I have tried with bottom. It gives some weird behavior because we have custom scroll and all those things, right? So stick to flexible space, and even inside flexible space, we are going to use the background widget. And inside that we will use a page view builder. Now implementation of page view is very simple. You just provide the item builder and item count. Here I said I want 5 items, and inside builder we'll be basically generating 5 images, right? Like images, and it will repeat it 5 times. So here we can use cached network image because we will be using this image from internet. And for the URL, I will just copy paste the same URL which we are using inside image style, and I will just replace the random, I will change the random keyword to something slider or something, so it gives a different image. It's not the same button, right? And of course we will use box fit to cover so that it covers the entire space. We don't have any white space on the sides, and it looks good. Now next thing we want is we want a gradient, black gradient on top of this image so that it looks faded. And the simplest way is to wrap this image inside a stack, and we will use a container with gradient. Now to wrap with a stack, I generally prefer to wrap with column so that it gives a children structure, and then rename it to stack. That's a bit a kind of a tip which I give in all the videos, so you must be aware about that. So here we have the image, and on top of that we will put a gradient effect. Now for gradient effect we will use a container. Of course, container is one of the mostly used widget inside Flutter because it is very dynamic. It gives, it's a wrapper. It works for every scenario, right? Okay, so here I have assigned a gradient to the container. You can use radial gradient, you can use linear gradient, circular. I don't know, like there are a couple of them. You can explore if you want, but here we'll be using linear gradient, and of course when you are talking about gradient you have to give multiple colors so that it transition from one to other. So colors is going to accept multiple colors, and we will say that we want to start from let's say black color, and then the other color should be transparent. So it starts with black and fades away with the image, right? And let's go ahead and give it a run. And you see that it starts from the left and goes to the right. So we can modify that by overriding begin and end property. So you can say begin and provide the alignment, which we are going to say bottom center, and it will end on top center, of course. This looks fine, but we can even customize how much space does each color take. Now it is taking 50-50, like black is taking 50 and transparent is taking 50% of the space. So we can define stops. Now what it does, it tells which color will stop where. So I will say black will stop at 0.01, something like that, and transparent will go till 100%. So the value 1 you have to give. Now you have to remember one thing here, that your stops item should match with your colors. So if you have two colors defined, you have to define two stops value, and the stops value are simply from 0 to 1 how much color space it takes. Now this looks fine, but there's a small issue got introduced when we added the gradient, that the images started having padding. Now to fix that, we can just tell the stack to expand itself so that it expands the image, it expands the container, it tries to fill the whole stack area. Much better. I hope you guys are liking the tutorial, so make sure to give it a thumbs up and write some feedback in the comment section. Still, the tutorial is not yet done. We are just halfway through. Next, we want to show the slider indicator so that user is aware on which slide he is. For that, I will just simply wrap the page view inside a stack. Now again, the same trick, we'll wrap it with column and then rename it to stack. And now here we will use a position widget, which will position the dots in the bottom, and we'll put left and right 0, 0 so that it stretches in the bottom. Now you can even use row widget for the dots, but I will use wrap widget, which is kind of a dynamic. If it overflows, it will automatically break the line and bring the items on the next line. Although we are not going to face this situation, but it's a good idea to use wrap widget for such scenario. And here simply I have generated 5 items, and for each item we will just return a container of defined size. Let's say that 10 pixel by 10 pixel, and we will use the shape of circle and provide the color of gray. Although we're going to change the color later on, currently highlighted color should be white, but for now at least we have something to see, right? These dots are here, which is quite close to each other. We can simply give some padding or margin to fix that issue. And I think we don't need margin from all the sides, so we can use symmetric and just provide horizontal margin of 8 pixel. And to bring the dots in the center of the screen, we can use alignment inside wrap widget. And let's see, it accepts wrap alignment. Just make it center and it should work fine. So the image slider is looking fine now, but the dots are not moving with the change of slide. For that, we can implement a simple a function where we will create a variable which will keep track of the currently selected index, and we will just match it with the list index. If it is matching with the current index, we will just return a white color, otherwise we will use a gray color. This is pretty basic implementation. I have just created a variable which can hold what is the current index, and we'll write a logic based on that. If index is matching with the current index, we will use white color, otherwise gray color. And of course, we have to change this value on page view builder on page change event. So whenever the page is changing, it will give you the current index, and that we have to set a state to the selected slider index value. This solves the purpose, but you can even animate these dots. Like currently it's just jumping from one point to other, so you can animate that with the help of animated container, and you just have to provide a duration, how much time does it take to move from one state to other state. And with that, we have completed the image slider with animated dot indicator, and we have an overlay of gradient which starts from black and goes to transparent. So now we are done with image slider. Let's move on to search button. For that also we are using sliver app bar, but this time instead of using flex spacebar, we'll be using title widget. Now there's a reason for using title, because it works perfectly fine. I have tested that. Let's use a text button with icon here. You can even use row widget and define your own text and icon, but there's an inbuilt widget for that, so that's why I'm using it. So here's the text, and for icon we will use search icon. Of course, you can even use rounded search icon. And then I will provide some styling. For that we have button style, and one important thing here, that here you don't specify the values directly, because these are state based styles. So you may have different states for you may have different style for different states, like hover, on click, on disable. So I'm going to provide for all the states this value. So for color, text style, icon size, for all the state I will provide the single value. And don't worry about the size of the search button, we'll fix it later on. Let's see that whether it's working or not. So when we scroll back, it doesn't appear, the search bar doesn't appear. To fix that, we will use float property inside sliver app bar. So we can say floating true, and also we have to mark it snap true so that it automatically snaps. And let's give it a restart, because somehow it was not working initially. So after restarting, everything was working perfectly fine. And here is the final result. When you scroll up and scroll a little bit down, the search bar appears, and when you are like almost on the top of the page, the search bar becomes part of the body. Now the problem here, that sliver app bar considers the top notch also as a part of the app bar, so it has the same height considering with notch. Now to fix that, what we will be using is media query remove padding. Now this is something I have tried for the first time. Glad that ChatGPT provided me that information, that we can remove padding from widgets like this with just providing the context, and we have to say which padding we want to remove. In this case, we will be removing the top padding. And bam, we have fixed the height of the search button. Now let's test it in the reverse scroll scenario. You will see that it's going behind the notch, because now it's not considering the safe area. To fix that, we will have to do another implementation. And don't worry, before we jump to the scroll controller and find the scroll position, let's do something interesting. Like let's just provide some rounded corner to this search bar so that it looks just like a design. And for that, I'm using a shape property here and providing a rounded rectangle border with border radius of maybe 12 pixels we can use here. The rounded corner radius is applied, but it's not yet visible because the whole scaffold is using white color. Now we'll just change it to black to see the effect. And here the corner is applied with gradient also became black. That's life, like you fix one thing and other thing gets broken. That's totally fine. Fixing this is very simple. We'll just wrap this grid view with container and say the background color should be white. Although this is looking perfect, there's a small issue here. The corner radius, it's leaking some color. So you can apply background color black to image slider and that will fix the issue. Perfect. So we have the image header, we have the search button, and we have the grid view. Everything is looking fine as of now. Now let's move to the point where we have to bring this search button below the notch area, below the safe area, because it's just hiding behind. Now first thing first, let's move this value to a constant number so that we can use it later on while writing a scroll controller. So I'll just simply create one constant over here on top of the file and define the value. This is just to avoid repetitiveness, and whenever we want to change, we have to just modify one place. Now if you have seen my previous video, there I have shown how we can write a scroll controller to listen to the scroll activity. We are just going to copy the same logic from home page and will apply on explore page. So basically I'm copying everything starting from scroll controller to the init state, and we'll just modify the condition based on which we will decide whether to show content behind notch area or not. So for now, let's not consider about after scroll result, because that you have seen in the home page how we can hide the bottom navigation bar with the help of this event. So simply on the condition, we will just set state with the is visible value. Okay, now let's just see how it works. Oh, we forgot to apply this variable inside a safe area. So let's wrap everything inside a safe area, the whole nested scroll view. And for the top notch, we will say whether it's visible or not. Based on that, we will decide whether we have to apply safe area on top or we don't need that. And also we will attach scroll controller to nested scroll view so that we get all the events and listeners. Now time to check the result. If you scroll, you will see that the whole content goes under safe area, so it doesn't fall behind the notch, and that's what we are expecting for the search button. Now it's appearing properly, it's not going behind the notch, but even the image slider at initial stage also it's going behind the notch, so that we have to fix. I can totally understand how such tutorials become boring because we have to work on the details, we have to achieve the exact same behavior, and we don't want to leave anything behind, just for audience to, scratch their head how to achieve that and is that achievable or not. I'm trying my best to achieve the same replica of the application. If you have any feedback or better code suggestion, you can write in the comment section. I would be happy to read that. Alright, back to the code. So what I have done here, I'm checking how much scroll has happened. If it is more than image slide height, then only push the content behind the notch, otherwise it will be inside the notch. So if you scroll, you see that the content goes behind the notch, and when you reach the image height, now it applies the notch behavior. Now if you're thinking on iOS we have so many complications, on Android life is much easier, that's not the case. Now even Android devices are coming with front camera on the screen, so you have a notch area there as well. Now based on this is visible property, we will customize some other things also. It's good to have, you can leave at this point, but what I'm doing here, I'm just changing the scaffold color. If it's visible, it will be black, otherwise it will be white, so that it doesn't look ugly. Once you are on top, the notch area becomes white. And the same logic we will apply on the search bar, because if you see the design, it has some transparency when it is coming up from the top, when it's floating. So we'll write the same logic. If it's visible, we'll make it white color, otherwise we'll make it white color with opacity of 0.95 or 0.9, whatever fits your need. So in my case, I think 0.95 looks better. And with that, I can call it a day. We have completed the tutorial. Let's summarize what we have done. We have created an image slider, which works like you can slide the images horizontally. Then we have a search button, which floats from top when it is scrolled. And then finally, we have the main content, which is this imaginary grid view. On click of a search, we will create the pop-up of search picker and colors and all based on the application actual design.
So many things for just a simple page, but the details does matter, and it gives the experience for which user will keep coming to your application. If you're interested to know the mobile development journey from designing to deployment, make sure to watch this video where I have highlighted a business use case which can benefit you if applied correctly. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.